Greetings. Welcome to the show. I am Nemo Jones, reporting for Beauty. And this is a Mneme stream dedicated to morality and right action. And I think I'm probably just going to cover right action today. We'll see. Obviously, they're completely related. Basically, they're kind of the same thing. But it's all different ways into thinking about ultimately what to do with this amazing life that we're given, or that we've somehow manifested, whatever it is. So I've written two pieces on this recently. The first was on right action and the second was on objective morality. You can find those on my blog, and they are, I think they're pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. It's funny on this subject because you're sort of putting your own character and putting things in your own voice and trying to interpret things, reinterpret things and restate things that you hope you've come to understand. And so you're trying to convey them in a way that is accessible, but that actually, makes sense, and not putting away too much of your voice into it. But I think what I've done with this is, I think it's original. So why am I doing this, and who am I to be talking about this? Well, I'm someone who only learned about this really in this kind of perspective on this quite recently. So I've been interested. I've considered myself some sort of idealist or something forever, but it's only in really quite recent years that I found a language that really made sense to me, that I could see clearly what's happening in this realm and why it's so painful to me and to everyone that I talk to. And we have, as I've said in my piece, people have ways of sort of kind of brushing this aside, the agony of existence, like people suck, or it's just human nature, or whatever, these kinds of things. I kind of list them in the second piece, but that's not really very satisfactory, and it's better to, if you can, find something that you can direct your attention towards, and that's what I'm trying to do with my work now, because to me it's about aligning with a higher purpose, not just a higher purpose, but the highest purpose that I can find. And so the highest purpose that I can find is to seek to understand truth and then seek to teach truth. So that's what I'm endeavoring to do in all of this writing and all of these kinds of live streams, etc., and also through my music. And it's tricky because I think everyone agrees that things are not great. And so that being the case, there's a kind of sticking point where if someone says, well, I know what the problem is, I can explain it, and I'm going to tell you all like how to fix reality. That's not hugely easy to receive for a lot of people, and it's never been easy for me to receive. We have an ego, we have things that we've learned, and we don't really want someone else to tell us, well, actually, stuff that you've learned, or in fact most of what you've learned, is a load of rubbish, and but I know the answer. And that's understandable, and I think that's why people don't really want to talk about morality and stuff. And that's kind of evidenced by the, to be honest, by the by the viewership of my of the stuff that I'm putting out. I'm putting out putting a lot of work, into like these blogs, and my people, my subscribers on Substack are just kind of, every time I release something, they just drop off. It's like, okay, and then in between they sort of nudge up, and then they just drop off again. It's like, okay, and it's funny. It's like, is it a boring subject? To me, I mean, the point. One point about that is it doesn't matter to me. Like, that's kind of irrelevant. It's kind of irrelevant who's watching, who's listening, who's reading. It's not like I'm aligning with my purpose regardless. Basically, I'm in alignment when I'm endeavoring to do this work, and so that is enough. And I will keep doing it. And yeah, so but the thing about being people being not wanting to hear, not wanting to hear that someone has got something to tell them that's going to prove them their ideas wrong or whatever. That's a kind of interesting one. And to sort of just to sort of clarify, to restate in a way, like I've learned this stuff. I haven't come up with the things that I'm teaching, that I'm talking about. I'm not that clever, wise, whatever it is. What I've done is kind of force myself to listen to stuff that was quite uncomfortable, and to question stuff, and to see where I was mistaken. And that is what so I'm just trying to convey a message that, as far as I can tell, is aligned with truth. And if it's not aligned with truth, please tell me. And ideally you don't just say you're not aligned with truth. Ideally you have something that's more true than what I'm saying, and then together we can get closer to truth, and we can get closer to acting right, to right action. And that's what this is all about, because it's so easy in this short life to go, oh, I just want to be comfortable. Oh, I just want to, have a nice life. Oh, I just want to have a holiday, or I want to just watch movies, or all these things. I just want to eat nice food. I just want to have nice friends. But there's so many things like that. And, almost more and more all the time, more distractions and all of that. And for me, I think I've always had a sense somehow that was never quite going to work for me, although I didn't really know what I was looking for. But for me now, I'm sort of super happy and excited, basically. And it's really this kind of revelation around morality, around natural law. It really has changed my life at such a deep, fundamental level, because I was. I wasn't particularly going to talk about this. Do I want to talk about my personal stuff? Let's just say, I've been very immature, and I've been very, I've followed like patterns that a lot of people have followed, and I was very low. I was very, very, very depressed for quite long periods of time. So like really chronic depression. That would come and go, and it was just kind of awful. And people thought I had bipolar and stuff like that. But that's kind of all gone. Obviously I have ups and downs. I get a bit low sometimes, but it's interesting to me, because when I started to, it was almost like after a few years or something, I went, well, hold on, what's changed? Why am I not depressed anymore? And I realized, oh, it's actually because I now am aligning with truth. That's actually why. And because not just that, but it's the difference between feeling out of place with the world or with society, whatever it is, and feeling, no, I'm in place. And I can now see how I'm in place, and it is the world that's out of step, which is, it's the meme. Yes, you are all wrong. Actually really landing in that and going, okay, yes, I am awkward. I am an awkward customer. Yes, I'm not going to go along with it. Although, that is part of what I'm going to be talking about, is that to a degree, we can't just go against everything. We have to, well, we can do, you're free to do as you wish, but it's going to be very difficult to just suddenly be moral in this realm, because you'll probably get your ass kicked in some way or other if you really engage with if you really embody actual truth in this realm. So yeah, just to restate, this is a Mneme stream. I'm talking about morality. Welcome if you're just dropping in. And so that's a kind of introduction. Hopefully that sort of helps understand why I'm doing this and why I'm going to keep doing this for the rest of my life. Yeah, and also, why my songs are as they are, because it's a reflection. You can't kind of be, as it were, a philosopher, a lover of knowledge, a lover of wisdom, and not start to sort of filter that into your music or your lyrics. The heart becomes aligned, the music, the magic becomes aligned with that message as well. So that's a little bit about me. And yeah, so this kind of bad situation that we're in, I'm going to come back and talk about that in a bit, but I think that's kind of it. So just to restate, yeah, these are not my ideas. I'm just wanting to convey them and broadcast them into the world, because I think that's pretty much the very best use of my time that I can think of. And yeah, I'm going to now talk about the first of my pieces, and you can read this on Substack if you haven't, and but I'm going to now just kind of walk through it, and I refer in the piece back to this. Hold on, I think it's there. Let's see. Oh yes, that works. Great. So this is my contribution to the, as it were, the freedom movement, the whatever it is, the truth movement, the natural law movement, if there is such a thing, and that's a contentious point in itself. But this is a contribution that I'm quite proud of. I sort of go on about it, but it's kind of with good reason. It's not just that it's because I think this is a valuable insight that you can see here on screen. So what it represents, as you can see, is expressions of right action. I probably bring this up every Mneme stream, but that's fine. To me, this is a valuable tool and a valuable way of thinking, of looking at reality, basically, and actions. So as I talk about in my right action piece, this, if when we look at this, you've got your feminine, your masculine. So that's as in the small print down the bottom. I'm not talking about men and women. I'm talking about the feminine aspect and the masculine aspect of anyone, or of any action, let's say. And then, so in the bottom left, because I don't know if I can point at things very easily. I mean, I can try, but I think sometimes that goes backwards and it gets a bit confusing. Yeah, let's not bother with that. But I'll keep myself here. Sorry, 1 second. can I do this? Oh no, stay. Right, sorry, just technical confusion there. Yeah, my layout here is doing something a bit funny, so I'm having trouble seeing. I don't know what it's doing. It's a bit off, a bit out of kilter. Sorry about this. I don't know why it's. Oh well, I'll manage. I will battle on. It's slightly better. Okay, so down at the bottom we have in the feminine column and the lower realm, we have do no harm. Okay, so this is very familiar to many people. It's known as the non-aggression principle, and it relates to also the concept of don't steal, or of not stealing. So that's which I haven't gone into in either of these pieces, but not stealing can be all wrongs can be thought of as stealing, or it's arguable that they are some form of stealing. For instance, murder would be stealing someone's life. So and you go on through the sins, as it were, like that. So stealing is kind of can be thought of as the ultimate sin, or just the catch-all that contains all the other sins. So doing no harm is great, obviously, and it's part of right action. So seeking to minimize the harm. I mean, obviously, we all walk around. We might tread on a creature or whatever it is. We like. The point is to minimize that in your life. That's a well understood aspect of right action. And for some people, for many people, it seems to be the end of it, the limit of it. Okay, do no harm. That's it. You've done no harm. Great, you're good to go. Now you're on your way to heaven, sort of thing. And there's a problem with this, because there's all of the other stuff there. So it really is. It really is it's not in our interests to focus on doing no harm. Not to say that we shouldn't think about it, or I mean, we can focus on it, but if it's at the expense of the other aspects of right action, the other expressions of right action, then that's actually a problem. Especially when we look at this what I'm calling the lower realm, which is the personal and the passive and responsive. So it's more to do with the day-to-day, largely to do with the day-to-day, or to do with material expressions of action and choices. That's all in this lower realm. So when we look over at the masculine, this is the sort of forgotten aspect of right action in the lower realm. And we've got there allow no harm, which basically is, if you really think about allowing no harm, that's quite a big deal. It's quite a big ask, right? Like, do I allow no harm? Do you allow no harm? What does that even kind of mean? And the thing is, because we're in this bad situation, we're in a dark time, it's almost impossible to kind of consider that there could be a situation where no harm was allowed. But if you use your imagination to envisage a time when everyone understood right action, which is basically why I'm doing this, just to bring on that situation, then you can imagine a time when harm was not allowed by humanity. And that's a different, and I've said this before in different places, that's a different reality. So that's a situation where the dictator, the would-be dictator, can do no harm because no one will listen to them, because they're just a madman, madwoman, whatever. Right? So that's the goal. That's what we're aiming for, is a scenario of allowing no harm. Because if humanity is allowing no harm, then no one can come along and say, well, I'm gonna do harm, because there's no one to enact that, and no one to allow it. It's like, well, no, stop. Well, that's not what we're doing here, right? We're actually doing the heaven part of the cycle, not the hell part. We had enough of that, and we can speculate that we may have been around this cycle a few times. That is possible. I don't know. It certainly seems that we've been here quite a while in some form or other, and a lot has happened that's hard to really get our heads around from a sort of materialist scientific perspective. Anyway, let me go here. Yeah, all right. So, okay. So that's the lower realm. So here when we start to look at the higher realm, there is a kind of a problem that we can get to internally within ourselves, and this is true for me. So I'm very happy to kind of name this. That it's like, well, how can I talk? How can I try and speak truth? So let's look at the top. We've got the higher realm. This is holistic, active, and an initiative. So you're not waiting for someone to do harm and then saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to stop that. You are actually initiating action. You're saying, well, I'm going to I'm just going to do something here because this isn't really working for me. And it's holistic in the sense that it's for the good of all, not for the good of the person that's being harmed at a particular time, or not for the good of the self. It's for the good of humanity, or it's just in the name of truth. So on this realm, you have, in the feminine side, you have seeking truth, trying to understand, right understanding, and a readiness to learn and to see where you were wrong and to correct. That's on the feminine side. Then on the masculine side, you have actually taking that out, speaking truth, taking action, and readiness to teach. So, this is what I'm endeavoring to do here, is this top right masculine aspect. So it's hard. It's hard to do that, and it's hard to know how to do it, and it's hard to do it when, it's hard to get attention doing it, because people are far more interested in watching Netflix generally, or whatever. But here I am trying to do it. And for me to get to this point of trying to do this, I had to overcome this problem of being a hypocrite, because I'm not doing the lower realm. I'm doing it to some degree, and I'm also not doing the higher realm as well as I could. I'm not studying all the time. I'm not trying in some sense. I feel as if I've kind of got it. I've got enough understanding that it's time for me to teach, to try and teach. That's kind of where I'm at. But in the lower realm, certainly, well, yeah, in all the realms, I'm inadequate. So therefore, who am I to teach? Who am I to tell you what's good, what's bad? Who am I to tell you what right action is? I'm a hypocrite. I'm imperfect. So that's really what this whole piece that I did about right action, that's really what it's about, is this question. Because, well, so I think, okay, so because when I think about doing no harm and allowing no harm, as I said, am I allowing no harm? No, I'm not allowing no harm. Am I doing no harm? No, I am doing harm. How? Well, for example, I go against my own principles in certain ways when it comes to the power of the state. I make a choice which is to limit my freedom in many ways, probably countless ways, really, rather than face the consequences, even though I believe the consequences are immoral. So, but I'm choosing to limit my freedom. So that is that is not that is basically contributing. Sorry, yeah, let me catch up with my thought. That is essentially colluding. That's colluding with the state. So I collude with the state, basically. I'm very sorry, but it's true. And that is hypocrisy. So in that sense, my collusion is a way of, that's not doing no harm. That is doing harm because I'm going along with a lie. I'm supporting the lie through my actions, not through my beliefs or my feelings, but through my actual actions. I'm supporting something that is immoral. So there you go, hands up. So I'm imperfect, okay? And also on the masculine side, allow no harm. I'm not allowing no harm. I'm allowing lots of harm. I'm allowing all kinds of harm. And yeah, so who am I then to step into the higher realm? So basically, this is where I think you have to really consider the bad situation that we're in. You know, and it's been called the latter day of the law. That's what Nichiren Daishonin referred to it as. I mean, maybe, I don't know if that was his term particularly, but the latter day of the law is when the natural law is forgotten and no one knows it. And it's not just that they don't know it, it's that they don't want to know it. They don't care about it. They're not interested in it. They laugh at it. They reject it. They demean it. It's just nothing to them. You know, it's like worse than nothing. And that's what we see now. Morality is a kind of like, well, what's morality? You know, what does that even mean? People have no sense of like what it really actually entails. So that is where we're at. So the thing is, when you're in different ages require different actions actually, or different perspectives, different, you have to understand the situation that you're in order to respond appropriately. And so you have to understand that actually at a time such as this, right action in the lower realm, I think is not even possible. I don't think you can actually have a life or you know, a day continue to manifest in a way that is doing no harm and allowing no harm. I don't see how you can do that. So you're going to be a hypocrite if you seek to teach people about truth, about the reality of morality. You're going to be a hypocrite. And that being the case, you kind of have to accept that. And that's really what I'm kind of, that's really the point. That's the crux of what I've written in this piece, is that like, well, if you want to do right action, if you want to use your life for the best, for the highest cause, then really you have to get to speaking truth and to teaching truth as quickly as possible. And you don't get caught up in trying to do no harm and trying to allow no harm. And I think a lot of people are caught in that realm. You know, and there's all, this is the realm of causes of sorry, what by which I mean it's actually the I've just scratched that because it's very confusing. What I mean is it's the realm of activism. You know, like you're trying to do something, but you're not really. You're seeking to allow no harm, and it's not really going to work. And what's actually more important is to is the widespread, the collective understanding of morality. And so that's really the point that I'm trying to make in this piece, is that basically teaching is of more import and is more pressing than actually what you do in your daily life. You can be a hypocrite, and you will be a hypocrite. And so, and you shouldn't wait. And, you know, because the more people that are doing this, as uncomfortable, as inadequate as this might be, you know, if you were doing this as well, and if more and more people were doing this, then we would start to understand morality collectively. And the thing is, you know, obviously this is, a lot of people won't understand what the hell I'm talking about, obviously, or they're just not interested. But it's like being at the vanguard. It's like it's like being at the down. I don't know what the analogy is, but it's like when this tide begins to turn, right? Then the first person, like, to swim back, or the first water drop to swim back the other way, let's say, is going to be like, what the hell is this guy thinking? Why is he? Everyone knows the tide is going that way. All the water drops, like, not just me, but like, I mean, I cannot see a single water drop going the other way. You know, maybe there's a crazy one over there, you know, conspiracy theorist or whatever. I don't know. But the you know, it's like that's the state that we're in. That's the state we're in. And so the vanguard is going to be, you know, it's the thing, you know, first you're laughed at, then you're ridiculed. First you're ridiculed, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually the tide turns, right? And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to do with this output. I'm trying to turn the tide, because I just think this world can be super duper awesome. I mean, for example, you know, the whole story of lack. Oh, we're going to run out of oil. Oh, we're going to run, you know, all of that is such a fantasy. It's so crazy, you know, and it so dominates people's experience, you know, and I can't, how am I going to make the rent and everything, you know, what a miserable lie all of this is. It's so distressing, you know, and so below us, really. It's so below us. We can do so much better than this. It's infinitely better. You know, this story of lack, you know, and I'm not one for pointing the finger at the bad guys. You know, the people still use this word, the elite. You know, like, seriously, stop saying that. Oh my goodness. You know, but the point is, it's not really about the elite. To me, I'm not actually that interested in structures of, quotes, power and all of that kind of side of things. I'm interested in your power. I'm interested in my power, because, you know, I might just be one little drop of water in the ocean, but the tide can still turn. You know, it just can. And that's what it's all about, you know. So that's what I'm doing here, is endeavoring to do that. So let me have a little swig of this. 1 second. Oh, good stuff. Cardamom coffee. I know I shouldn't be drinking coffee at this time. Terrible. Anyway, right. So teaching. So yeah, just to say again, this is the Mneme stream. I'm Nemo Jones. I'm talking about morality. I've got this expressions of right action. That's what we're talking through. And as I talk about in my most recent piece, morality is essentially very simple, and I've come up with kind of a really, what I think is a nice way into it. And to me, I'd love to hear an argument against what I've written, honestly, because I'm doing my best to explain it. And actually, this came through a conversation with my son. I was like, yeah, how do I explain the objective nature of morality? And I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to get into that during this stream, but the point is, it is simple ultimately. And when you simplify it, I mean, we can talk about the island experiment, thought experiment, which is where you just imagine you're on an island or in a situation with one other person, what's right and what's wrong, and that's your kind of basis. And really, as I talk about in my most recent piece, what it's really about is sentience. Maybe I will just read a little bit from my most recent piece, because I came up with something I was quite happy with. Let me just grab it here. One second. Yeah, so a rational and self-aware consciousness, i.e. being, i.e. me and you, who possesses innate freedom and a conscience, right, which is the ability to act with knowledge. That's my understanding of the word conscience. There is a different one which is to do with the sharing of the knowledge, but there's potentially two ways of understanding the etymology of conscience. Must conclude that the fact of its preference and free will, i.e. the fact of my preference and free will, is mirrored and thus limited by the fact of the preference and free will of the other. Right? So you have free will and preference, and I also have free will and preference. So if we're on this island, I can't just act as I wish. That is an abuse of my freedom and placing my preference above yours. And there's no basis on which to do that other than to claim superiority. And then once you enter into claiming superiority, into the idea of hierarchy and whatever, then you're into a different realm, because there's really no basis to do that other than I'm stronger than you, or whatever it is, I'm cleverer than you, etc. But ultimately, that's a very, very bare bones. That's a little piece from my most recent piece, which kind of explains that. And there are complications. There are other aspects of morality which we can think about and talk about. There's the sort of edge cases, which I refer to a little bit in the piece, where it gets a bit more or a bit harder to see what's right and what's wrong and all that. And there is also, lost my train of thought. Morality. There is also something there. Okay, I'll have to leave that, sorry. But the point being, morality is essentially simple. Oh yeah, I know. The other thing is, actually, I think that property is a whole question, and when we talk about the real 7 deadly sins, which I refer to in my most recent piece, and I'm not going to go into that right now, but the real 7 deadly sins include theft and trespass, trespass, whatever it is, trespass. And when you think about those, there's a lot of potential confusion around what theft and what property actually consists of and what it really means. And I'm super excited to be that's going to be probably not my next piece, but it's upcoming, a whole piece about that, where I really want to get into the question of property, because I don't think I think I've really got something to offer there, hopefully. So yeah, that's that. Anyway, so morality being simple means that you can come to understand it quite basically, quite quickly, and then you can move up to teaching it, which is what I beg you to think of your life being for, because what else is more important in an immoral world? You know, and who will deny that this world is immoral? And that being the case, what could be more important than teaching morality? And what could be a more direct solution than teaching morality? That's my perspective, you know, on that. It's like, well, it's so obvious, really. I mean, it's kind of crazy that it took me this long, and I needed to have, you know, other people explain it to me. But it's like, yeah, of course, humanity doesn't understand morality, and when humanity does understand morality, it will not be able to act out of alignment with it, because it will that becomes impossible, especially when everyone around you understands morality. So that's the goal, that's the solution, and that's why I'm doing this. So I am on like a high level mission, you know, and again, as I said, I don't think I have all the answers, and I'm very open to criticism of my ideas. I mean, you can criticize me personally as well if you like. Yeah, that's fine too. Anyway, yeah, so morality is simple. Applying morality is difficult, as I've said, in a fallen world, as you could think of it. You know, this Mapo age, as they call it in Buddhism, the latter day of the law, when the law is forgotten and ignored and laughed at, and even denied. That's the kind of word I was actually thinking of. Is denied. It's like, no, there is no morality. That's the kind of, you know, no, it's just a, you know, dog eat dog. That's reality. And people think that's what natural law means as well, which is sad and wrong. So applying it is hard, and it's hard to apply in. Morality is simple, but applying morality is hard. It's hard to apply in our own lives consistently and non-hypocritically. It doesn't mean we can't. We can definitely make progress in that direction, and I encourage you to do so. There's a whole realm, layers that we can apply ourselves in that way and try to align ourselves with true morality. And it's also sorry, just look at my notes. I think it's hard to follow conclusions in society. Oh, right, yes. So this is another very difficult part. This is more difficult. No, it's not more difficult, but it's also super difficult. When you understand, if you just do the island experiment, and this, I learned this from Locke and Rose. When you do the island experiment, thought experiment, you think, well, hold on, you know, and this is what Locke and Rose says. He says, okay, there's two people on an island. Let's say we're on an island. Can I tax you? Can I coerce you to pay me taxes on the island? Just us two there. Obviously, the answer is no. Okay, so how can anyone ever tax anyone? And you know, that's the thought experiment. That's kind of it. How can anyone ever tax anyone? How can anyone coerce someone to pay them money ever? And how can 100 people tax one person? You know, the numbers don't matter. The principle stays. The principle remains, and that's the sort of and you can you apply that to anything. But when you start to do that, okay, so right, so taxes are actually immoral, okay, and then from that you start to, the world, the structure of this kind of created world just starts to crumble around you. And it's not just around you, well, it's not even around you, it's still there outside of you, but internally the beams and the columns are just falling down, because you're like, well, that doesn't actually hold, that is not legitimate. This thing, this part of the furniture that I'm used to, or this building that I'm in, or whatever, it just doesn't hold. And that can be very difficult for people, and it was difficult for me, and it's still difficult for me, because, as I said, I can't, it's I choose ultimately not to act in alignment, and as I think, now who is it said this, but I think it's no, I can't think of the name, but there's a quote which is pretty on the money about this, which says, if one person is wrongly enslaved, then the only right place for anyone with a conscience is in the prison with them. Sorry, wrongly imprisoned, let's say, yeah. Then the only right place for someone with a conscience is in the prison, because they tried to get them out and they were also in the prison. It's something like that, so it's like, that's kind of taken me a little bit off course, but yeah, the following of the conscience would lead to violence or coercion, basically, in this realm. And so we're not trying to, I'm not trying to suggest that people grab their pitchforks or anything like that. It's not really about that. It's about just understanding the immorality, teaching the immorality, understanding it, and with internally contemplating, well, what is actually immoral in this world, and what does morality, a moral world, look like? Because that's a part of it as well. Part of speaking truth, I think, is to speak of the imagination. Something can't be manifested until it's thought, until it's till it's in the imagination. And so that's really, we're not even at that stage yet. We're barely at that stage. I mean, I do contemplate heaven, in this realm, what that really looks like. I do have a practice of doing that, and for me, that's very important. So that's that. And so when I have a video that's quite short, that's just talks about, I think it's called something really clickbaity, like 8 ways into shadow work, I think, or something like that. And that talks about these 8 areas, and there may be more, but there's 8 sort of key areas that are named in that video, where if you understand morality and then you start to look at these 8 things from that perspective, you will see, oh, that's not in alignment with morality, even though it's something that so it's like 8 key areas, and I'll just rattle through them. I'm not going to dwell on them now, but these, you might not even know what all of these mean, but I've got statism, carnism, money, materialism, Satanism, religion, New Ageism, and scientism. I'm not going to dwell on those, but as I said, there's this other video, and I will, I think, at some point potentially do sort of deep dive into each of those, and how when you apply objective morality to these realms, you start to see that they start to crumble. And that's what we want, because basically, enlightenment is the crumbling away of illusion. and it is uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable, and that's the same when it's your internal bullshit, and it's the same when it's the world's bullshit that you are carrying around in order to recreate it for the next generation, which is what's been going on for I don't know how long. Seems like a long time. Okay, so I'm kind of going to wrap it up soon. I'm just going to say, you know, the thing is, you know, for me, yeah, and that's just another thing that I refer to in the piece, the right action piece, is we want a world where people like us have done the work. You know, that's how you get to heaven, is that people with a conscience act. That's basically it. You know, people with a conscience create, you know, it's the, you know, good times create bad men, you know, bad times create, you know, the thing. I'll let me just actually get it right. Good times create bad. I don't know. Maybe it's not really relevant. I'll leave that one. It kind of is, though. It's like, you know, it's certainly arguable that heaven creates laziness, you know, and laziness and cowardice create hell. And hell creates courage and care. And the courage and the care create heaven. You know, that is arguable, that there is this cycle and that we are part of that cycle. And, you know, I'm fine with that. You know, I'm fine with being on the upswing here. You know, even if it feels like we're right at the start of the upswing and all the other drops of water are looking at us going, what the hell, bro? So, or they're just ignoring us. Yeah, that's fine. That's all fine. So that's kind of it for me. I am going to ask you for money because why not? So I'm doing this. Obviously, this is my time. I put a lot of time into writing. I spent most of yesterday writing. Doing this takes time. Promoting this, trying to get it out there, all of that stuff. And there is a donate button on just at mnemejones.com. You can just see there's a donate button there. And what I'm sort of angling for is if people are able, you know, if they have a steady income, if they're able to donate, like people say, the price of a coffee a month or a week or whatever it is, those kind of regular things, that could be really helpful for me to really shift my attention and put more effort into what I'm doing. And also, obviously, my music, because I'm looking to record. I've got a load of great new songs that I'm really excited. I really want to make sure that I record them in a way that I'm really happy with. And I'm getting some help with that. That costs money. So there's a lot to do, and yeah, it could be really helpful to get some extra income. So I'm just going to put that out there unashamedly. And that's basically it. Oh yeah, my website is mnemejones.com. You can find my blog there. You can find everything there. I'm posting now on Instagram and Facebook. It's the same, you know, just cross post to both of them. So I'm putting short form things up there, which are hopefully little nuggets of inspiration for you. And I'm playing also in London on the 13th, Saturday the 13th of June. That's a house concert in Stoke Newington, and I'm going to be playing my new songs there. Super excited for that. And then I'm going to be playing in Teignmouth at a lovely venue, which is the Folk Preservation Centre. Awesome venue. And I'm going to be playing there in, I think it's anyway, it's on my website. I don't want to get the date wrong, but it's more towards the end of June, 26th or something like that. And that's it. I'm just short of an hour, which I think is fine. And thank you for your time and attention. I really hope this has been of some value for you. And I feel good. So thank you. Blessings. Blessings on your Wednesday evening. Take care. Cheers. Bye.